Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Parikshit Luthra and here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. US President Joe Biden makes a surprise visit to Kyiv ahead of the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The White House says that the president will announce another delivery of critical equipment, including artillery, ammunition, anti-armor systems. Reports suggest that President Biden took an hour-long train journey from the Polish border to reach Kyiv. Stock markets give up early gains to end at the low point of the day. Sensex loses over 300 points. Nifty loses 100 points. Mid-caps buck the trend with the index ending with minor gains. Adani Group's market cap falls below $100 billion as the stock rout continues. Adani Green has lost more than 75% of its market cap. Adani Total has lost the most since Hindenburg report, with market cap eroding by more than 3 lakh crore rupees. CNBC-TV18 Newsbreak confirmed Union government opposes Hindustan Zinc's plan to acquire Vedanta's global zinc assets and says it will vote against the proposal at the EGM. Hindustan Zinc's management says it will engage with minority shareholders and remains hopeful of the government's offer for sale going through before the end of this fiscal. Cipla stock slips after US drug regulator issues 8 undisclosed observations for its Madhya Pradesh plant after a good manufacturing practices inspection. The plant accounts for a sixth of Cipla's overall sales. Madhya Pradesh cabinet approves a new excise policy to discourage liquor consumption. No liquor shops will be allowed within a 100-meter radius of educational institutions. No liquor shops would be allowed to have separate areas for drinking. Uddhav Thackeray-led faction of Shiv Sena moves Supreme Court against Election Commission. This after the EC allotted Shiv Sena name and original bow and arrow symbol to the other Sena faction led by current Chief Minister Eknath Shinde. Sanjay Raut accuses Election Commission of bribery. Thackeray says name and symbol stolen and given to traitors. Turkey-Syria earthquake death toll crosses 46,000. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tours quake-hit zones, announces $100 million in fresh humanitarian aid. Turkey ends rescue efforts in all regions except for 2 provinces. Indian Army's medical team deployed under Operation Dost returns to India. Mark Zuckerberg takes a leaf out of the Elon Musk playbook after Twitter. Now Facebook and Instagram users will have to pay for a blue tick. Meta to roll out paid verification service first in Australia and New Zealand, and this week followed by United States and other countries. The top story this evening, US President Joe Biden made an unscheduled stop in Kyiv ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The president's public itinerary had initially suggested he would be visiting Poland. As per reports, President Biden embarked on an hour-long train ride from the Polish border. In a statement, the White House said that the president will announce another delivery of critical equipment, including artillery, ammunition, anti-armor systems, and air surveillance radars to help protect the Ukrainian people from aerial bombardments. Yes, we'll come to this in just a bit, but let's take stock of how the markets fared in trade today. The Dalal Street failed to hold opening gains to end Monday's near the day's low. Sensex lost over 300 points to close 0.5% lower, while the Nifty fell over 100 points. Financials were the major drag, with the Nifty Bank falling over 1%. However, mid-caps outperformed to end mildly in the green. BSE companies erased a market cap of close to 1 lakh crore rupees today. Prashant Nair is here with the day's trading action.
Well, we started a new week and the markets were under pressure right off the bat. The first couple of hours, things looked like there was hope, but then there was a constant, steady slide. Nothing alarming, but a clean 100 points knocked off the Nifty. That's about 0.5%. Banks have been consistently underperforming, so the banks lost more. The bank index itself was down about 1%, double of what the Nifty gave back. I mean, we basically picked up from where things had left off, off on Friday. There were no new real big developments over the weekend, so there was more of the same. Losses of the large caps coming through in names like Adani Enterprises, Britannia, Cipla, which came under pressure. It was just a day when there were more losers as compared to gainers. It was not as if there was anything special or very large about what went down, except maybe in Adani Enterprises. In the broader markets, breadth was in favor of decline, so more down than up. So some losses first. Shilpa Medicare was a big gainer on Friday, gave back some today. Data Patterns, Rainbow, That's a hospital company, Tata Investment Corporation were some of the losses that we saw. But I have to say, although numerically losers outnumbered gainers, what went up with a lot more enthusiasm and a lot more volumes, and I think that's something to pay attention to in the coming days. Bharat Dynamics, the defense companies, Zomato, smaller tech companies like Sonata Software, Happiest Minds, health insurer Star Health, Serra, All Cargo, Gokuldas were some of the names which did very well. We don't have cues from the US. US markets are shut, stock and bond markets. And the market here in India, the Nifty is closed exactly at the 20-day moving average, which is the short-term determinant of whether the trend is going to flip bearish from a little bit of an upside that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 weeks or so. Back to you.
All right. Thanks, Prashant. Now, let's go back to our big story. President Biden making a surprise visit to Ukraine. We saw him walking alongside President Zelensky in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. He also visited the St. Michael's Monastery. But before we discuss more on what's happening on the ground, let me go across to Stefan Korshak, Kyiv Post defense correspondent, joining us. Stefan, thank you very much for joining us. This is a developing story. President Biden making this surprise visit because of security reasons. Very little was known about this. Give us a sense of what's happening on the ground. Where are the two leaders? Who are the people accompanying President Biden?
Well, regarding who's with Biden, we're still working on that. I couldn't tell you. They're in the central part of the city. They're near a memorial to people, soldiers who have died during the war that started in 2014. That's also the heart of the religious center of Kiev, or one of. So it's a place that tourists actually go a lot during peacetime. I'm sure that the significance is that Biden is going to a place where the Ukrainians go to recall their war dead. It's very tight security in the center of the city. Traffic is awful. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change until Biden leaves. We don't have any information yet on when that would be.
Right. And it's quite clear that no one in the media had any tip-offs about this. Obviously, because of security concerns around the visit, there was an air raid warning which also went off some time back. Now that President Biden is here, he's walking alongside President Zelensky. Do we know how long will President Biden be in Ukraine? Will it just be a couple of hours?
That is the general opinion of the media here. The thinking is that it's just his handlers wouldn't allow him to be in a war zone for any substantial length of time. It's not clear what they're going to do besides come out in public and make it clear that the president physically is in Kiev. There's some speculation that there'll be some kind of announcement, some kind of public statement. But what that statement might contain, nobody seems to know, as far as we can tell.
Right. And give us a sense of the kind of announcements expected. We've seen the White House statement, and there the president has said that I will announce another delivery of critical equipment, including artillery ammunition, anti-armor systems, air surveillance radars. So could you give us a sense of what's on the cards? What has President Zelensky and the Ukrainian government been asking for from the United States over the last few weeks?
Sure. There are two items that are pretty much at the top of the Ukrainian request list. The number one item is artillery ammunition. And it's not just heavy artillery ammunition, it's mortar ammunition, it's grenade launcher ammunition, because right now the Ukrainians are dealing with very heavy infantry attacks, and you don't really take those out with precision long-range rocket strikes. You need just masses of ammunition. The Ukrainians are firing it off very quickly. They are asking the Americans for more. So if the Americans, which is likely, do indeed offer more ammunition, the first question the Ukrainians are going to ask is how much, and the next question they're going to ask is how long is it going to last? Because it's a very intense war, and ammunition is being fired off very quickly. The second top ask by the Ukrainians, without question, is fighter jets, or strike jets is probably a better way to put it. But the position of the Ukrainian government is that that is a goal that they intend to reach, but it's a process. So it would be a surprise for American deliveries of fighter jets to be announced, done, and completed today, but a step in that direction, perhaps training for Ukrainian pilots, perhaps lighter aircraft that might transition to fighter jets. That might be a possibility, but it's not as pressing as the artillery ammunition. Beyond that, the Ukrainians have been asking for a long time. Yeah.
Right. Stefan, do you also get a sense that while this is a strong show of solidarity by President Biden, visiting the Ukrainian capital, walking alongside President Zelensky, sending out a message to President Putin that we are together, we will continue supporting Ukraine, the Ukrainian people, till there is a need to do so. But at the same time, is the United States also nudging the Ukrainian president, the Ukrainian government, to agree to some sort of a diplomatic solution, a way out of this war as well?
They could be. It's one of those behind closed doors conversations that we aren't normally privy to. As you well know, the American formal position is that it's up to the Ukrainians to decide when and how they want to end the war. From a practical point of view, it's very widely understood that at some point between now and summer, the Ukrainians are very likely to launch a big offensive using a lot of this Western equipment, and probably more importantly, trained soldiers that have been practicing their warfighting skills in Germany and Britain and other places. And that force will be committed to combat, and nobody really knows how effective it will be. There are hopes by some that it will end the war. There are suspicions by others that it will do very little. So American pressure probably is put in abeyance a bit until this offensive is kicked off and the results of it are shown. If it shows big results, then probably that will trigger even more Americans to support. If less than that, then the Americans might start saying, again, behind closed doors, look, we're helping, but you can't get as far as you want to, so maybe it's better to start talking.
Right. I would also like to ask you about the Russian offensive. As we're nearing the anniversary, the 1 year of the Ukraine-Russia war, do you also see Russia stepping up offensive in certain areas along the Ukraine-Russia border? Have the missile strikes increased?
The missile strikes have not increased. They have decreased in terms of frequency and in terms of scale. The generally understood reason for that is simply that the Russians are very limited in the number of missiles that they can launch. Regarding cross-border attacks, really not substantial. There were a couple of villages, as I understand it, captured by the Russians in the Kharkov region in the north, but that seems to have been more of a diversion than a major attack. The Russians clearly are conducting a major offensive in several different directions, centered around locations that probably a lot of your viewers have heard about, places like Bakhmut and Vuhledar, and those are in progress. The fighting is intense and it's ongoing.
Right. Stefan Korshak, thank you very much for joining us with those reports, with those views on what's ongoing as far as the war goes, and giving us a sense of what's happening between President Biden and President Zelensky as they move around the Ukrainian capital. Thanks once again for being with us. We're going to take a short break here on Business 360. Up next, Uddhav Thackeray-led faction of Shiv Sena moves Supreme Court against Election Commission's decision to recognize the Shinde faction as the official Shiv Sena. We discuss the contours of the Election Commission decision with former CEC T.S. Krishnamurthy. Welcome back. You're watching Business 360. The Uddhav Thackeray camp has moved the Supreme Court challenging the Election Commission's decision to recognize the Maharashtra Chief Minister Eknath Shinde-led faction as the official Shiv Sena and allowing them to use the bow and arrow symbol. It has allowed the Uddhav faction to use the flaming torch symbol in the upcoming by-elections in Maharashtra. The Shinde faction took over the Shiv Sena party office in the state legislature today. It has also filed a caveat plea in the apex court. The rationale of this move is to ensure that no adverse order is passed against them without without hearing their argument. Addressing a press conference today, Uddhav Thackeray said that the EC should have waited for the Supreme Court verdict on disqualification of MLAs.
हमारी अपेक्षा यही थी कि जो चिन्ह हमें दिया है, उनको जो चिन्ह दिया है, जब तक सुप्रीम कोर्ट में फैसला नहीं होता है, तब तक चुनाव आयोग अपना निर्णय ना सुनाए। घर के बाहर वो गए हैं, तो वो डिस्क्वालीफाई होने की संभावना अधिक है। कानून के अनुसार जो घटना संविधान में लिखा है, उसके अनुसार वो डिस्क्वालीफाई होने की संभावना अधिक है। हमें कोई खतरा नहीं।
I'm now joined by former Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy. Mr. Krishnamurthy, thank you very much for joining us. First of all, was the ECI right in its rationale in awarding the bow and arrow symbol and the Shiv Sena name to the Eknath Shinde faction?
Well, I've just cursorily gone through the order. I've not gone through the order in detail. But the order seems to be a well-reasoned order. But I don't know whether, there are any arguments that the other party has got to go to the Supreme Court. So if it is challenged before the Supreme Court can certainly hear and take a view on the matter.
One point that was rejected by the ECI, that was made by the Uddhav Thackeray faction, was the basis of the party constitution. The ECI ruled that the party constitution is itself undemocratic. There is a leader who has chosen the electorate, and that body has chosen the leader. So this is not how things function in a democratic country. So do you think this was the right basis on which the symbol was awarded to the Shinde faction?
No, the party constitution should normally provide for democratic features, like the members of the election committee, everything should be elected by the members of the party and not by the leader. So it appears to be that the leader constituting an electoral college seems to be a little undemocratic. And that is one of the reasons that the Election Commission has gone by in its order. If an electoral college is determined only by the leader, it really seems to be undemocratic, because normally an electoral college has to be in the constitution on the basis of the approval of the members of the party. So it seems to be a little incongruous that an leader can decide the electoral college. That is very apparently undemocratic.
Right. Do you think the Uddhav Thackeray camp has any legal arguments to challenge this in the Supreme Court? Do you think there is merit in their arguments that the ECI has wrongly awarded the symbol and the party name of Shiv Sena to the Eknath Shinde faction?
I'm afraid I'm not able to, since I have not gone through in detail the order, I'm not in a position to straight away say that the order cannot be challenged. My own feeling is any aggrieved party is certainly entitled to go against the Election Commission. So I take it that the Supreme Court will certainly bear in mind the challenges posed by the other side. But the order, as I see it, seems to be a well-reasoned order. That's all I can say at the moment.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Krishnamurthy, what is the precedent when it comes to cases like this? When you have a political party where there has been a split?
But you see, the main order seems to be based on the fact that the electoral college itself is not properly constituted. So the facts are slightly different. In the case of Congress party where the split took place, or some other parties where the split took place, they were on the ground whether the majority rule was followed or not. So this seems to be a slightly different case. So I cannot say that there is a definite precedent on the matter raised in this case.
All right, Mr. Krishnamurthy, thank you very much for joining us. So Mr. Krishnamurthy there, the former CEC, saying that the ECI order on the Shiv Sena symbol seems to be well-reasoned, and clearly the party constitution of the Shiv Sena was undemocratic. But before we wrap, the finance ministers and central bank governors of the G20 nations will be meeting for the first time under India's presidency on February 24th and 25th in Bengaluru. Ritu Singh is here with what we can expect.
That's That's right. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das will jointly chair the first G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting under India's presidency on the 24th and 25th of February this week. This is going to be preceded by a meeting of G20 finance and central bank deputies, which will be co-chaired by the Economic Affairs Secretary Ajay Seth and Michael Patra, Deputy Governor of RBI. The meeting is also going to see participation of finance ministers and central bank governors of G20 members, invitee members, as well as heads of several international organizations. So in total, there will be 72 delegations that are expected to attend. Now, several issues are going to be taken up, of course, such as strengthening multilateral development banks to address shared global challenges, financing for resilient, inclusive and sustainable cities of tomorrow, leveraging digital public infrastructure, and so on. And they'll also cover issues related to the global economy, global health, and international taxation as well. Now, on the sidelines of these meetings, there will be events which are related to digital public infrastructure, policy perspectives on crypto assets, and the role of national payment systems in cross-border payments as well. Now, apart from these, there will of course be some special dinners that are organized, cultural programs and excursions that are planned for the delegates attending the event, and there will be a special walk the talk policy in action event during which the ministers and governors are going to visit the Indian Institute of Science to engage with tech innovators and entrepreneurs that are working on affordable solutions to some of the challenges being faced by G20 member countries.
All right. Thank you very much, Ritu Singh, for joining us. We're going to take a short break, but stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. News continues on the other side.